And we're recording. All right. Well, hello, everyone.
Okay.
Welcome to the epic quest of the Kalevala. I'm Eliana, and this is Taylor, and we're very excited to talk about this weird book. All right. So, because there's a lot that we don't read, I think we're just going to go back and forth and kind of talk about some of the stuff that you missed if you didn't read the whole book. So, Taylor, do you want to start with kind of walking us through, and then we can just go back and forth?
Yeah, so we stopped reading in the early stages. We missed let's see, where do I want to start? I think with Imaran E the names they
Is it Ilmarinen?
yes, Ilmarinen. Um he gets married,
Mm-hmm.
which I thought that was really cool. Right beforehand, him and Vina,
Vainaminen.
Vinaminen,
I had to
there.
Google how to do all these names because it was weird.
You are better than me because I just sat there and started abbreviating them.
Oh yeah, I have like VL written in them, but I had to know how to say them.
Yeah. So Vinaminen and Ilmarinen, they were actually rival suitors for the Pojola's maiden, and I
Mm-hmm.
thought the whole thing was really cool because they just decided they were like, okay, whoever she picks, may the best man win, kind of thing, like objectifying women as they did.
Right? Like, oh yes, this is just a
So
normal prize.
right, and so Ilmarinen ends up winning the betrothal, but of course he has to go through all of these trials. He has to plow a field of vipers. Um, he has to capture the bear and wolf of Tuani. Just trials as one does.
Yeah, and then isn't there it was like he has to like spear a big fish, like a great pike, and then
Yes, the pike.
eagles, yeah, the pikes, and then eagles are involved. Um, and it was funny reading this story. I saw a lot of like similarities to other myths that we read, and like all the tasks reminded me of Jason and Medea. And they're just like, you've got to go do these impossible tasks. And what made me laugh was that like Ilmarinen has to go ask the maiden for help. He can't just do it himself.
Yeah.
Alrighty. So yeah, so Ilmarinen's marriage and like leading up to that was cool. I think one spot that I think was kind of interesting right before the marriage is that Vainaminen, who's really the main character of everything kind of comes back to him. He's been trying to get married. So like obviously he was competition with Ilmarinen, but before uh he loses to Ilmarinen with the girl, he tries to marry this other girl because he gets in a competition with this guy named Yukinainen. And Yukinainen is this young boy who thinks he's going to be better at magic than Vainaminen. And Vainaminen turns out to be better than him. And he puts a spell on him. And Yukinainen's like, hey, if you let me go, I'll give you my sister. And she's young and pretty. And you're old, so it'll all be great. And Vainaminen says, okay, well, that's a decent trade. And so he lets him go, and then the Yukinainen comes home, tells his sister that she's got to be married, and the sister is like, I don't want to get married to him. Like, I'm upset about this, and she ends up like running out into she goes out to a lake and she sees these girls swimming, and she's like, I'm gonna go swimming with them because like that sounds better than the life that I'm living. And she falls on a rock and she dies. And Vainaminen is just kind of like, oh, well, that's sad. And so he's like weeping along the beach, and he's like, I wish my mother was here to tell me what to do. And I guess he cries so loudly that his mother rises from the grave momentarily and says, hey, like, go to this other island. There's prettier women there. And then he meets the girl that Ilmarinen ends up getting anyways. So, like, Vainaminen just never gets the girl.
Never.
Yeah. And then, okay, so after the wedding, um yeah, what part, like, where, like, you can pick up, since I kind of, like, I went backwards, if you want to keep going forwards a little bit.
Yeah, so after the wedding, before we get to the Calavero uh part, Calervo, that's what I'm thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we run into our good old friend Lemminkainen again. Um, and he gets very upset because he was not invited to this wedding.
Mm-hmm.
And he throws a fit, because that's the only logical thing to do, is throw a fit and kill people because he wasn't invited to the wedding.
Men, am I right?
um, and she, against, his mother's wishes, decides that he's going to go through this battle and everything. And he ends up battling with the master of Pojola. Um, and at first, like, he's winning with the magical contest, and then comes the duel with the blades, and that battle begins, and Lemminkainen actually ends up beheading him, so also another fun thing that happens.
Yeah. And then and it, from what I remember, like, with all the battles and stuff, like, they end up, he's trying to go across, and then the queen, I'm trying to remember her name, oh, Lohai, she gets mad seeing him do this stuff, and so she sends Jack Frost to go freeze the ocean and makes everyone have to walk home because
Yeah.
which is, like, such a great moment. Okay, and so then after that, then we get into, like, then there's, like, the whole section that we've already read, and we get kind of to the ending, and Ilmarinen's wife is dead. She gets eaten, like, by cattle, and he's super upset, and he gets really weird for a little bit. Like, he builds a new bride out of silver and gold, and then he, like, tries to sleep with it, but he doesn't like that the metal is cold. I don't know why he didn't think about that beforehand.
Right.
I was like, it's not gonna, like, just because you molded it hot doesn't mean it's gonna stay hot. And so he takes the statue to bed, and he doesn't like it, so he gives it to Vainamainen because he thinks Vainamainen will be intrigued by it, and Vainamainen is like, dude, that's messed up, send that to Russia, or Germany, or, like, wherever they're gonna appreciate gold more than living things. And then and then, kind of, like, the end is Ilmarinen goes back to his mother-in-law and informs her that her daughter is dead, and then asks for a second daughter, and she says no, and she tries to kidnap her, and he manages to kidnap her. He takes her onto his ship, and then another man makes her laugh, and he gets jealous because he hasn't been able to make her laugh, so he turns her into a seagull, and she just flies away. And then the big war just kind of breaks out. So do you want to talk, like, a little bit about kind of, like, the battle between everyone?
Yeah, so finally, like, our three mainish characters, Vainamainen, Ilmairen, and Lemminkainen, finally they all join together to go get the Sampo that Ilmairen crafted at the beginning for the for Luhi and her people. And so they firstly are on their way there. They have the they run into the giant fish again, a giant pike, and from this pike, Venominen tells Lemminkainen, "Okay, kill it, like."
Just be done with this thing.
And he can't. So Ilmairen laughs at Lemminkainen and is like, okay, I'll kill it. He can't kill it. Of course, Vainamainen steps up, all big and bad, and finally ends up killing the pike. And then he fashions and turns the pike into an instrument, and he starts playing music. So we get another musical break.
So much music. There's so much music in this thing.
Yeah. which, you know, everybody is like thrilled to hear Vinamine play, and he even starts crying because of how great he is and how he's playing, which I think was, you know, humble, like, and what a humble talent.
Right?
Then finally they get to Pajola, and Lao comes out. Lao Hai comes out, and Dynamite is like, "Hey, we want the Sampo back. It's Myron's. He made it. We want it back." And of course she's like, "No, I don't want to give it up." And so that's when the battle starts. But Vainaminainen plays his little instrument, which puts the people to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, do you want to continue?
Yeah, and so like so then they take it and it kind of sends everything into chaos. Lohai takes the sun and the moon out of the sky, and then the planet starts dying, and they start trying to like fashion like a new sun and moon like artificially, and then that doesn't work. And so finally they end up back, everything just kind of like restored to order somewhat. And then the very ending is kind of confusing and a little like it ends with basically the story of Jesus being born, but not quite. It's like this virgin named Marietta, which sounds a lot like Mary, but okay. She becomes pregnant, and it's like under like weird circumstances, even though she's a virgin, and Herod is involved, and she gives birth in a stable, and it's just like, this is the newborn king. And it seems, I get, because it's an oral tradition and because like it's a cultural epic, it's one of the, like, the ending is okay, that is a little confusing because it's kind of meant to be told like we're sitting around a campfire and eventually this is going to go into a different conversation. But it's definitely interesting, like kind of how the ending just kind of makes you think about like, oh yes, the future and what happens. And it, you know, it's kind of like the end of the first episode of Star Wars where everyone just kind of like stares off into space. But so yeah, so that's everything you missed. um did you have like a favorite scene that you want to talk about?
Um, yes. So I think we read into this part a little bit. It's around Canto 15, and it's when Lemminkainen's mom like searches for him, finally finds him, and like puts him back together again. I just like reading that, and like the like how describing it was, like she asked a bee to get honey from the heavens so that way she could put his whole body back together. And then like I think that's just like the description and like the detail that was given really made that part stick out to me. But then also like how his mom's like gone through all of this work, put him back together again, basically like revived him, and then he goes off to still do silly stuff that ends up like getting him hurt.
Right. um yeah, that was, Lemminkainen is just so, all of these men should just listen to their mothers.
It would solve so much problems, like much of their problems.
I think I'm trying to I don't know if there were so many scenes that I just loved. There was one, so right before the wedding, Lohai, the queen, she's trying to make beer, and this for her daughter's wedding, and this old man, I think his name was like Virocanis, he comes up and there's this whole canto just about like how to brew beer, and it's like this whole like magical process, and there's a magical squirrel that's involved, and it was just really trippy to read.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of my favorite moments were around the wedding, because it's like, so you had the beer brewing, and then during like the wedding ceremony, there's this old woman who stands up to tell the bride like, hey, just so you know, marriage is kind of awful and your mother-in-law will treat you like garbage. So have fun with that. And so yeah, that was those was fun times.
Right.
I'm running through the other questions we have. So can you think of like characters that maybe it's going to be mostly minor characters because the big characters are all the way through, but were there any characters that we didn't really see in the spots that everyone else read that you think are worth mentioning?
Um, I thought you had a really good one, and I can't remember. Her name starts with an O.
Oh, awesome. I think it's Osmata.
Yeah, I think if you want to talk about her,
Yeah. Well, so yeah, she was the one that was like giving everyone like or she was giving the bride the advice of like, hey, this is like this is what marriage is like, and it's not all going to be perfect, and your mother-in-law is going to be awful. She's a cool character that we don't have. She was definitely a top contender for me. And then another one that I really liked was yeah, the Viraconis, the guy that teaches them how to make beer. I thought that was cool. And also like the random insertion of Jack Frost to like send him to freeze the ocean. That was cool. So, all right. So in this like whole work, what were like some kind of like overarching themes or just kind of like stuff that you noticed that like stuck out to you about just the story as a whole?
um, looking like from the outside, like as a reader, when you've read the whole thing, you're like, wow, all of this could have been stopped if they just listened. I guess was kind of like a big thing that really stuck out to me was like, hey, somebody's telling you that this is dangerous and these are the consequences and this is gonna happen. But I'm a hero, I'm gonna do it anyway.
Right. I'm a big strong man. I can handle it.
Right.
Yeah, that was a big thing for sure. Yeah, I think I agree. This just like not listening to wisdom and not listen, especially the moms, because the moms are always like, hey, don't do this thing. And then the guy does the thing, and then it just all becomes chaos.
Yeah.
Um, I think that's super interesting, just like as a cultural epic, especially because like they talk bad about women in this story, but it's like the women a lot of times have the wisdom.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting like listen to your moms, but don't respect your wives.
Yeah. And then you have like the super awesome like Lohi, and she's just like, I had like a love-hate relationship with her. Is like in some points I really liked her.
Mm-hmm.
Points I was like, oh girl, I don't think it's that big of a deal. You don't need to do all of that. But
Yeah, like because she's considered the villain, but I don't know. There were times I was like, I think she's right.
oh yeah, like when Elmiran comes back for her second daughter.
Yeah, like
I'm
who's
not
just
gonna
gonna be
let you.
yeah, just gonna be like, oh, you couldn't take care of the first one. I'm gonna give you another one just without question. Sure, bud. Like, no. But yeah, and then I guess just like to wrap up. How much did you I guess just like how much did you enjoy this book, and do you think you'll ever read it again? Is this something that like you are these the kind of stories you like to read, or was it not your thing?
So I really enjoyed this book. Epics in general have just always been hard for me to keep together, and like because of how many different episodes they are and like how much time periods they're covering, sometimes it's just really confusing, like the storyline to me. And they're throwing in all these crazy type of things,
Mm-hmm.
such as the magic element, the monsters, all of that. But I really enjoyed this one. It was hard to read, but once I got through it and was able to like, discuss parts of it, I really liked it. Um, I don't think I would ever go back and read it all again just because like some of the cantos, like personally the Kalervo was not like a favorite of mine. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like it was kind of short and like kind of just like thrown in there, like yes, like he's the reason why Ilmarin's wife dies, which sparks the ending part. Um, so I don't think I would go back and read it all again, but like that ending's just so filled like with the war and like everything happening. That's filled with so much action that I really enjoyed that part and might like go back and like read that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get that for sure. Um, I I'm kind of the same way. I like epics, but I don't they're hard for me to follow a lot of times. I think I appreciated this one a lot because you see so many like this is a story that you can definitely see how it influenced a lot of the writers that I like Tolkien and a lot of like the people who liked like the Germanic pagan stories, and then we've got like the Finns, and the Finnish are just like this is so different from Beowulf, but also
Oh yeah.
like weirdly similar in some ways, just like the warriors, but the warriors aren't good people. And I I definitely want to reread parts of it because I want to like understand some of it better. And I do like a lot of the stories. But I think it's not as much that I want to reread the book as much as I want to like do more research about it. And
Yeah.
just like kind of, especially because like I did a little bit of research and there's different translations and there's like longer and shorter versions of this. So I would like to know like what other scholars have done with it.
Mhm. For
But
sure.
so yeah, well, that brings us about to the end of it. Do you have any final thoughts?
I don't think so. Let's see. Rating, I'd say 8 out of 10 because the story was good, but -2 points because the men don't listen.
Heard that. I would rate this. I would say probably like maybe 8.5 or 9 because like this is definitely my favorite thing that we've read this semester. Um,
Mhm.
but like I definitely laughed the most in this. And I liked that like there were women that actually like knew what was going on. But yeah, gotta take some points off for just men not listening and like just being entitled to random women. Also, that gold statue, that was that. Don't do that. Don't fall in
Didn't
love with
like
statues.
it.
But yeah, so for all of you watching, we hope that this encourages you to go ahead and read the rest of the Kalevala because it's a trip. So, all right, bye guys. Good luck with the rest of your finals.
Bye, guys.